yeast is something that, lives in anyone who has a vagina, no matter how you identify, no matter what your gender identification is. If you have a vagina, you're going to be somewhat prone to the yeast beast because it lives there.
Welcome, Olivia. You are a nutritionist and a herbalist, and the woman who brought me deeper into the plant world. And
Aww.
yeah, you are. I really enjoyed the journey we had the last year. Actually, I haven't been the best student, but oh my God, you just brought me so much deeper into the plant, the knowledge, and I'm so fascinated about it. And I can't actually wait this year to plant some of my own stuff. I finally have a proper garden. So and I have you
Yeah.
on here today to talk to this topic. I think a lot of women are struggling with, and not a lot of women are talking about. And it's your whole journey with herbalism, of course, but also the yeast infection, the what you call it, like so it's more vaginal yeast infection, right?
I call it the yeast beast.
The yeast beast. Yeah, and you're probably not the only one, and I think all women at least once had a yeast infection down there. I did, for sure, many times. But I also know many of my friends are actually chronicle suffering from this, or on and off actually every month. So I want to hear a story about it. And I know because you've been my teacher for so long now. So you told the story, and I want to present it to the world, the yeast beast, and your story behind it, and also because it actually led you into herbalism, right?
It did. So big appreciation actually for Candida albicans, which is the botanical name for the strain of yeast that causes a yeast infection. And yeah, I'm really appreciative of it. And it's really nice to have come full circle from it being like my mortal enemy to now having a place for it in my heart. So yeah, yeast is something that lives in anyone who has a vagina, no matter how you identify, no matter what your gender identification is. If you have a vagina, you're going to be somewhat prone to the yeast beast because it lives there. It lives there. It's with us all the time, and it's meant to be there. It's part of our body. We're more bacteria. It's a fungus, but we are more bacteria than we are human cells. If you're going to measure a human being by number of cells versus like mass,
Mm-hmm.
the human cells are bigger, so we don't look weird. But yeah, we're lots of different strains of bacteria and fungus and human cells and all kinds of stuff going on to make up this body. And I guess I'll just jump into the story of it, really, which is
Yeah.
that um, I was 20 years old, so that was 22 years ago now. Um, I was living in New York City,
Oh.
which is not where I'm from. I was doing an internship at the Whitney Museum of Art, which they weren't paying me for. So I was also working two other jobs to just feed myself. I was living at like a friend's parents' house in Tannytown, which is like an hour train ride away from the city. I was dating a very handsome artist, struggling artist. And it was the summer before 9/11,
Oh,
which was kind of
wow.
crazy. Yeah, to have lived in New York right before that happened. And I'll never forget it. I was like taking a shower one day, and all of a sudden, like I washed down there and it was painful.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? This is weird. What's going on? And then, this is like before cell phones. This is like before I can Google it, like I just like, wow, I have no idea what's going on. So I think I might have called like my stepmom or something. And I think I slowly figured out, oh, this is probably a yeast infection.
Yeah.
So I think first I might have like tried some yogurt, like just putting some yogurt on it. And then I think eventually it evolved to like monostat. I don't know what you have in, what is like what is it called? Like the thing that you would get at the pharmacy, like the
Oh,
over the counter
oh,
yeast infection medicine.
it's called, I think it's called canistane here or something, canistane or something like that. It's like a,
Yeah, done
pill.
that.
Yeah, and then you insert it and yeah, canistine, I think. I don't use it anymore. I have like some herbal stuff.
Uh-huh. But there was a time in your life when you used it.
Yeah, I remember back when, when I just started having sex, I think I'm taking the pill, I got it. And then who actually sent me down there to get that stuff? I don't remember, but I remember that thing, and you put it up there, and I remember my vagina also not being happy about it. But at least it took the itch away and all this stuff. So, but I haven't suffered from it as many of my friends has. I always had quite a happy vagina. With
Good for you.
yeah. So, but it's just been on and off. I think I came mostly from sex, I think. Um,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
intercourse, yeah, or what proper sex, whatever. Yeah. So
You don't have to be too like polite with me. I know we've had a teacher-student relationship, but you can just
yeah, and it's
whatever.
the Uncomfortably Honest podcast. So yeah, and I'm not polite at all. So I'm happy you're saying that.
I was thinking before we started this, I was like, I hope she feels like, because I think some of the other people you had on here, maybe you were like more friends and things
Yeah.
like that. I'm actually it's impossible for me to lie. I think I'm most of the time uncomfortably honest, whether I'm making other people feel uncomfortable or I myself am uncomfortable. And honesty is actually a way that I help myself not be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm the same, and that's why I felt that actually while you were teaching as well. So even though you taught about a lot of stuff and also, like quite important stuff and technical things. I think there was always there was this humor to you, and it was just yeah, I could just feel that you were like quirky and funny and honest. So I didn't have like this teacher student kind of feeling when you were coming on
Oh,
today. No, not at
oh,
all.
oh, good.
No. But yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so
let's loop into back to
get back to Yeast Beast.
yeah.
So, obviously, like it affects your sex life and it's terrible. And
Yeah.
especially when you're so young. I mean, I didn't feel very young at the time, but now looking back, I'm like, oh, I was so young. 20,
Ooh.
I wasn't even really like of age to drink in the US. But it was really like it was a summer of love, and I don't know if that brought it on. I think it was also that I was wearing these like synthetic pants. Like when I went to work at the museum, I was so broke at the time. I was just like really, I really was. It was the most like struggling part of my whole life. But I had like gone to a really cheap clothing store and I got these really terrible like synthetic black pants, and I would always wear those when I had to go into the office.
Mm.
And yeah, it was just, I think it was a combination too of like synthetic pants, lots of sex, lots of bagels, eating lots of bagels every day, drinking a lot of coffee with a lot of sugar and milk in it.
Yeah.
And just, it's always a multifactorial thing, right? I think that's another mistake a lot of people make in health when we're seeking answers for our own health. We're like, okay, but what's the cause, right?
Exactly.
Is it the sex, or well, it's probably that you have gut inflammation and maybe you had an infection and then you gave it to your partner and they're asymptomatic and now they're giving it back to you even though you're taking all the herbs, and it's like this vicious cycle. So anyway, so I think it kind of went away, and then I struggled a little bit with it like in college, and then I graduated college, moved back to Baltimore, and I also have this like very distinct memory of going to the Planned Parenthood, which was my gynecologist in the United States. It's like where you can like pay sliding scale or whatever. It's like the poor man's gynecologist. So
Okay.
I was going there, and everyone should support Planned Parenthood, by the way, if you're listening to this.
Okay. I will. Do they have a website or what?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
If anyone from the states is listening, they'll know
Okay.
exactly.
We will.
But and they're controversial because a lot of people get abortions there.
Okay.
But it's a public health it's a private health institution that is for the public, and it subsidizes like birth control pills. They have free condoms. You can get like free GYN checkups. You just bring your pay stub in and you show them how much you make, and then they tell you, okay, your service today is $10 or whatever.
Oh,
So
wow. Oh, how
yeah, they're
beautiful is that?
yes. I mean, they also help you get pregnant if you want to get pregnant. It's called Planned Parenthood, right? It's like for people who want to have a choice in the matter. So
Hmm.
anyway, so I was going there to get my GYN checkups, and I kept going again and again and again because I kept getting these yeast infections, and they kept giving me prescriptions for diflucan, which is like the oral prescription antifungal. Do you have one of these in Denmark? Like a
No,
version of like an antifungal tablet that you have to get a prescription for?
never heard about it. Probably they have, but I haven't. I only ever put something up, but never swallow anything so I don't know actually.
Hmm.
I will look it
It's a
up.
pretty powerful thing. I mean, if you have a raging yeast infection and you take this one pill, it's like pretty much gone the next day. At least that was my experience the first like 3 or 4 times I took it.
Oh,
But then,
wow.
it slowly stopped working. It was like
Okay.
my body
Shit.
was like, nope, I'm sorry. We're gonna just keep having yeast infections.
But
And so
can I just, yeah, but doesn't it also, if you take that like a pill like that, wouldn't it also destroy other things? I'm just wondering.
all fungus. Yeah.
And we need some, right?
I don't even think that even the people that make it fully understand all
No.
the repercussions of those kinds of things. I mean, we have this idea that like, oh, if it's past these trials and da 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 and it's safe, and then we put it on the market. But the reality is that we don't even understand like cell receptors fully in the body. Like there's just some really basic things that we still don't understand. So if you don't understand like how the ears that are hearing the message of the drug are even like manifesting and what they're and all the things that they're doing, then how can you possibly understand what a drug is fully doing in the body?
Mm.
um, anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, so it eventually stopped working for me. And then I have this very clear memory of this wonderful nurse practitioner who worked at the Planned Parenthood, who was like, I went to her and I was just in so much pain and I was so exhausted with it. I'd probably been having chronic yeast infections at this point for like 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I was like, is there anything else I can do because this diflucan is not working for me anymore? And she just goes, you didn't hear it from me, but you can take probiotics. And
Ooh.
I was like, what are probiotics? And she was like, go to like a health food store. And, grant this was 20 years ago. And I was like, okay. Like, and I was like, why is this so like secretive? Like, why is it that it's like she was acting like I might lose my job over this.
Yeah, I'm selling drugs or something and in the backyard. Oh, wow.
But there's this thing called lactobacillus. Like it was like I was like, okay. So I think I found some probiotics and it really helped. And I was like, wow, okay. Then probably around the same time, I was dating another guy living in New York, and I was hanging out at his house, and he was somebody I went to college with, and he was living with another good friend of mine, Lindsay, who's
Oh
an
yeah.
amazing person. She was in the class.
Yeah, she was.
And she was a massage therapist at the time and a puppeteer. And she's just always been very witchy. And she had this book on her kitchen table that was called like 1000 Teas or something like that. And like
Mm.
flipping through it. And it's like one of these like really generic herbals where you look up a problem and then they list, like 12 herbs you can take.
Yeah.
So I looked up yeast, and there were all these things. And I was like, how come nobody's telling me about this? This is so effed up. I was happy, I was excited, I was angry,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Because did anybody else actually also, because I was just what I was thinking while you're telling me all this with going to the clinic, was anybody actually suggesting that you should eat differently or maybe stop having sex for a while, because that can also change the pH in your vagina, right? If you're having too much sex and too much sperm in there, and you know what, if you don't use a condom. But nobody was telling you about like even food, because I think still that is a thing. Nothing, nothing.
No, because I remember the first time I learned about, and then of course I started talking to people about it, because once the medical system like has nothing else for you, who do you
Mm.
go to? Also, before like Google and cell phones and whatever, you go to your girlfriends and you're like, what are you doing about this? Like, what do you do? There's got to be
Yeah.
something. I'm not gonna live with an itchy yoni for the rest of my life and like be a total bummer in bed. And so
Yeah.
you try to like find some answers. And somebody in my community, at that point I was an art handler, somebody in my community was like, oh yeah, I also have chronic yeast infections, and I have this book, and the book is called Erica White Beats Candida.
Ooh.
Super fucking extreme. I was like, oh yeah. And so she like loaned me this book. And that book was like, here's everything you cannot eat. It was
Oh.
like super, and it had recipes, like recipes for like squash bread, like all the things like that you have to start cooking for yourself if you can't eat like white sugar. If you can't eat any sugar, white flour, like nothing fun at all. And then I was like, okay, well, so then I had, like maybe 5 years, the next 5 years of my life was like trying to do the extreme diet of the anti-candida diet,
Yeah.
having it get better. But then you're in this phase, and I've had so many clients who have voiced the same thing. You're doing this like super extreme diet, which is so stressful and so depressing. And then it's like, if you smell bread,
Mm.
you get a yeast infection.
Oh. It's like proper, not just like
I mean,
imagination,
I'm
but
exaggerating. I'm
sorry.
exaggerating, but no, it literally is like
Yeah.
you take like a bite of a cracker.
Yeah. And then
Yeah. You're feeling better. You're like, okay, all right, I got this now. I did the no sugar thing for a couple weeks, and now I'm gonna have like a chocolate chip, like a bite of a chocolate chip cookie. And then the next day it's just like raging, raging yeast beast.
exactly, because you then for such a long time been clean, and then but that sucks so much then that you're actually doing everything, but you can't really like have almost a normal life because it's so hard to be on those restricted diets, right? So what
It's
then? What happened? But
exactly.
what did you do?
So then I started getting a little bit more serious about the herbs. I also started going to see an acupuncturist, and the acupuncturist was amazing. And she actually helped me a lot with the food thing. And I had been a vegetarian for a long time.
Mm.
And she said, honey, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have to eat meat.
Yeah.
like you, like who you are, like the body that you have, like the constitution that you have to eat meat. So I started eating meat and that helped. And then I started going to oh no, and then I went to India and I was on one of my really extreme diets while I was in India, like no sugar, no pasta, no rice. It's just impossible to be in India and not eat rice.
Oh
So then
no,
I think
yeah.
I started eating rice and I was just like living off of oatmeal and it was terrible. I wasn't even eating fruit. It was terrible. It was
Oh,
so terrible.
so
Um, but then when I was in India, this is kind of embarrassing. I was reading that book, Eat, Pray, Love.
oh, I love that book.
I love Elizabeth Gilbert.
I love her too.
Um, and I got like the typical Westerner, like GI thing that you get when you go to India, where it's just like coming out of both ends and you're just getting like so sick.
Yeah.
And so I had that for 3 days. It was like a huge purging thing. Um, I think at that time I had these like suppositories, like vaginal suppositories I was using that were made by Tori Hudson that were really effective. So it was like I was kind of managing it by the diet and then the Tori Hudson suppositories. And then I was in India doing this really intensive meditation retreat and I got really sick. I was reading that book and I just woke up one day like from the deep sleep and like sweating, pooping, vomiting, like everything out. And I woke up and I was just like, I am going to be an herbalist.
Really?
Yes.
I just got goosebumps. I didn't know that it was like that. So you, oh, okay. Wow. Tell more.
And I think I was kind of like in like, I was in love with that herbal character in the book and Eat, Pray, Love. And
Oh yeah, Vayan, right? Wasn't it
I don't remember,
Vayan? I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
but I was so smitten with their like relationship and that
Yeah.
character and this idea of like, a person that you could go to and like their presence was healing, but also they had a close relationship with nature. And so they were being healed by their relationship with nature. And then they were like passing it on to you in a spiritual way, but also in like a physical way through plants. And I was also really just in love with my acupuncturist. And I was in a place where I just needed to do something different. I'd been working in an office and I was working with all men. And I I think it was some combination of like the purging and the having dealt with the chronic illness for so long. And also I was like 27 or 28. So I was going through my Saturn return. And it just was like there was no turning back.
Yeah.
It was such a feeling of certainty.
Yeah. Wow. I
Yeah.
love that because it's really coming back to the true nature. I love that the yeast infection actually took you all the way to India and doing all that, and then you had like a proper that is a proper meditation. That's a deep meditation because your body is weak, you're shitting yourself, you're puking, you're sweating, and you are because and the only thing you can be is there, here and now, right? And then you get the voice from inside and it's telling you to become a modern day kind of witch with herbs and stuff. How how amazing is that? I didn't know that part actually. That is so beautiful. So do you think the seed was seed planted back then from the book you found in Lindsay's house or apartment?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Because I think up until then, I didn't even really know that that existed, you know?
exactly. Yeah, sorry. I'm just so excited about it because I felt the same way when I moved to, I had the same awakening kind of thing. I was just really drunk. And I woke up and I came home from town and I was so miserable and I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, fuck it all, man. I'm moving to Bali. And I had it and I did 3 weeks later. So and I had the same feeling as you. I when I came to Bali and then met all these healers, not so much about herbs, but in general, just changing yourself, changing your mindset, changing your health. And I also now I remember when you were saying that I actually had a healer who I also had candida at this time. Now I remember that. And I had a friend in Bali and she told me go to Dr. Bobby. And so I did. And she put needles in me, but she also put, on the needles stuff that you can light on. You put
Mock.
like herbs or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's called mock.
Yeah, I don't remember at the time what it was. And then I was just laying there on fire. And but then she was telling me because she was just walking around eating her tuna, and telling me all the stuff about life. And I was just so amazed by this woman. And, the whole place where I was laying in, it was like the shelves were full of medicine and books and all kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I want to be her. She's so smart and there was so much. And because I came from such a small village in Denmark, and here you just take a pill to cure your depression or whatever you need, and there it was such a different world. So yeah, I can just relate so much. Sorry, I just went off here on my own little journey.
I love getting to know you more too in this, Nicole.
Yeah,
Niki,
exactly.
whatever you.
Niki, Nicole,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, the Niki also stems from Bali. They couldn't say my name. That's why they called me Niki in Bali. And so every time I speak English, that's kind of what I say. But anyways, let's get back to you. So herbs. And so you decided to become a herbalist, and where are we at with the yeast
I mean, it was
beast?
so, I mean, I was kind of managing it, but it was still very, very present in my life. Like I hadn't felt healed from it. And I just got this really clear calling, like, I'm going to be an herbal, it was like, okay, no turning back now. I remember I even called my mom, because again, this is still before cell phone. Like, so you had to go to a calling station and like pay the money to use the phone. And I remember, like, as soon as I could get up out of bed, I went to the calling station. I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm going to be an herbalist. And she was probably just like, okay, whatever, like it's just Olivia in India. And I will say also that I think, a real part of that clarity was, and I don't say this lightly because I really don't say this kind of thing often, but when I was in India, we were going to these ceremonies that were like empowerment ceremonies, and they were being done by a Rinpoche who had grown up in Tibet and he had studied in Tibet, and it was in this incredible stupa, and he was teaching, and I didn't understand anything that was being said because it was all being said in Tibetan. But I was studying with a teacher, Khandra Rinpoche, and she was like in this lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. And so I really do think that there was like something very magical that happened like in that stupa. Like, even though I consciously really had no idea what was being said or what was going on, I did have to sit there for like 7 hours a day, every day for like 10 weeks. And I think, yeah, and I think that there was something that happened. Um, I mean, I think travel, anytime you travel,
Mm,
like a space gets opened up in you that just is not possible to open up. Like if you stay in the familiar, and also
yeah.
being in India, I don't know, there was something like meeting like other young people there who were like Tibetan and who had been like born basically in this refugee camp and had lived their whole lives there. And their dream was like, I want to go to Doha and like be a construction worker. Like that was like the biggest, like brightest thing that that person was imagining, right? Or like you would talk to somebody who had like a fruit cart or something, you know? And it just,
Mm.
if you've never like been outside of the United States, or even like outside of the Western world, I think you take like all of your privileges for granted. And
Absolutely.
so there was also something about being in India that made me feel empowered to do the very best thing I could possibly imagine doing with my blessed life. You know, like
Yeah.
not to not to say that like you're always blessed if you're born in like a Western country or something like that. Like we all have our problems. But
True,
like
true.
just yeah, just that like acknowledging like wow, I'm a woman. I live in a country where I can go to college, like I
Yeah.
have the means, I have the ability, I have the support network, I have the community. Like there's nothing stopping me from being whatever I want, you know?
Mm.
And then it was like, okay, well, if that's true, what is the best thing that you could imagine doing? And it just shifted things where I wasn't like, no, I don't like my office job, but I don't really know what else to do, to like, let's be of service to the world in a way that makes me 100% fulfilled.
Goosebumps again. Wow. So just take me back into that the where you just had to be there for 7 hours. So something shifted in you there. I don't know if you finished that whole sentence about that. I just found it very interesting. What was it? Was it just saying? Was it that message you got in there when you were sitting there? I don't know what you called it. The thing you went into.
The stupa, I mean,
Stupa.
you know, it's like you're just surrounded by monastics. We were in a small group of Westerners who had the really great opportunity to be there, but most of the people who were there were monastics, who they were nuns and monks, um and it just felt really special. I mean, the ceremonies that they were doing had not been done in like 50 years or something, and they probably were not going to be done again in like another 100 years, and it just felt very special. And I was in like a state of, yeah, I was like 27 or something, and I just was kind of like, I don't know what's going on, but I know this is really special. But then when I woke up in the room that we were staying after my sickness,
Mm.
and I had such a clear feeling, it was almost like someone turned a light on. I just feel like I have to acknowledge that part of that for me was the fact that I was there and I was receiving something magical,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
think that kind of thing happens in different ways for different people. Like, I think some people get really connected to their ancestral lineage. Some people do like sweat lodges and do other kinds of like purification practices. I know a lot of people that come into my life through herbalism will say, and then I went to go do ayahuasca, like that's like a common thing.
Really?
What, that doesn't happen to you?
Well, I tried ayahuasca, but no, they don't come to me for that.
Well, no, they don't come to me for ayahuasca,
No,
but
no, but
like,
yeah. Sorry.
no, just in their story,
Yeah.
that's like something.
Yeah.
So, I'm not someone that ever um was really into like mind altering drugs. I mean, I love mushrooms. I love psychedelic mushrooms. I think they're amazing.
Yeah.
But, you know, things like tripping on acid or like doing MDA, whatever it's, I don't even know what they're called. You know, these like really like mind altering things. I've never been that into them. So for me, I think that's just what it took. It took going to India. It took like doing intensive meditation for 10 weeks. It took getting some kind of bacterial infection and pooping and vomiting and sweating. And also Elizabeth Gilbert. That's
Oh, you have to poop and shit when you come to different countries like that for sure. I think we all, oh God. I think also that was the first thing I did when I came to Bali. It's just a must.
yeah.
Shit yourself.
Yeah.
So so what happened
So yeah,
next?
so I came back.
Yeah.
So I came back to the United States, and I had a friend through the art world who had gone to acupuncture school in Maryland, where I was living, and she was saying how life-changing it was for her. And so I'd already kind of known about the school, but because it was a master's of science in Western herbalism and I had only had an art background, I had just kind of dismissed it like, oh, this is not something I could ever do. But when
Hmm.
I came back from India, I was like, I'm doing this. You
Wow.
know, there was like no stopping me. And so I went to they had like an open house. So the school was called Thai Sophia when I went there. And it is the only place in the United States where you can get like an accredited master's degree in Western herbalism. And when I went to the open house, there were two of the core faculty at the open house, and we were all sitting down and we were like going around introducing ourselves. And I was sitting in the front row and I was like, my name's Olivia Fight. I don't know anything about herbalism except that I'm going to be an herbalist. I was like, whoa, like who is this chick?
How cute. It's like when you just started in school. Hello.
Yeah, it's like kindergarten.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. I don't know anything about school, but I'm doing this.
so I spent $70,000, which is crazy to me now that I did that. So I went into debt again to go to school, and I got a master's degree in herbalism. And in the first year, in the first semester of that program, one of the things that you had to do was go consult with a professional herbalist. Like you had to go do, and you could choose to go see the people who were in the clinic. So it was like a clinical program, supervised clinic. So I
Mhm.
chose to go see one of the students who was doing their clinic at the school, and I explained to her the whole thing. I was like, okay, this is what I've been going through for like 8 years, right? And she said to me, okay, well, the thing that you haven't been doing is boosting your immune system. And I
Ooh.
was like, what are you talking about?
What is
And she was like, yeah, you're having a chronic disease. Like your vagina has the ability to balance its own thing. But for some reason, your vagina is not doing that. So let's help your body help your vagina do that. And I was like,
Oh my
great. Yeah,
God.
let's fix this shit. Like, I'm tired of this. And she gave me ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm.
She gave me astragalus and probably some other things like warming. I think there was like cinnamon, ginger in there. And I just started doing that tea. And slowly, slowly, I really started having my deepest healing experience from Candida. And by the end of my master's program, I was done with that shit.
Really?
Yeah.
I almost want to
I,
cry on your behalf.
I have not had a yeast infection since I graduated herb school.
I
Yeah.
think that deserves a little bit of silence. Wow. Because again, I think you said that before we started the podcast, but it was like we never really understand where does it actually come from. Like one thing it's showing, like the vagina showing I'm having a yeast infection, that's I'm itchy. But why? And that is like that's a total different place to look for it. Because then you said in the beginning we look like food and sex and all the stuff, and maybe that brought your immune system also to lower, and you right. So it's like this, that's so hard to come up with yourself, right? You can always look at your food, but the immune system, that must have surprised you. Like, what did
Yes.
yeah, what did you
It was
think? Yeah.
also really shocking to me that it took going to see so many doctors,
Mm,
so many nurse practitioners, so many people doing so many things. And then finally, in the end, it was this student herbalist who was like, here's some ashwagandha and some astragalus. And I was like, wait, these are not anti-yeast herbs. And she was like, exactly. That's not how we're going to fix this. We're not going to fix this with antifungals.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Just,
True, true holistic healing.
and then it must just have been feeling like you must just have been feeling, wow, I'm really actually followed the call of my vagina to to end up there, and suddenly actually, the call you get back there in India and everything, and the whole yeast story, and then suddenly the solution and the thing you wanted to become actually also heals you. I'm a little bit amazed right now. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and it's what I want to give to other people, like on every level. If you're coming to see me as a client, if you're coming into the classroom with me, if you just come to like an herb walk, or if you hear this podcast, like however it
Mm,
is that people interact with me, that is what I'm trying to give people, is I'm trying to open up the door for them to have their own experience that's like that. Not my experience, but their own experience that's just that, where you take the blindfold off and you're like, okay, first of all, you are empowered. Second of
yeah.
all, you're interconnected. You're interconnected with the earth. The earth is if you put the plants in your body, the body is going to take what it needs from the plants. The plants are going to give you what you need, and this beautiful thing can happen. And it's not just about healing your vagina, which, the itchy vagina might be one of the reasons why you start looking for the doors to open,
Mm,
but the deeper healing comes, just there's so much more that can happen there. And it all
absolutely.
needs to happen. It all needs to happen, because if you're stuck in a space where your story about your life is just, I don't have another option, or my only option is to like make money or have a job that feels safe, or to live in the same place that I grew up in, or whatever it is, you've got to learn how to like liberate yourself from those things. Um, and I think that plant medicine does that too, you know.
Yeah, because I feel like for me, definitely also it gives you this connection back to nature. And I think that was my biggest adventure the last couple of years with herbs, and then all the stuff I learned from you, and it's that connection actually that you just can walk outside and there it is. Like there's around every corner there's medicine for you. And when you get your eyes open for that, that's magical. And all the yeah, just all the stuff, all the things we learned from you, and the teas and the smoke and the creams, and I don't know, and suddenly it just helps you, and and you can feel that it is a part of you somehow, like it melts together with you when you take the certain tinctures or whatever. I think it's such a, I have never felt so connected to nature as I do now, and thanks to you. Thanks to you, it was just been such
Thanks
a
to nature.
beautiful
Thanks
journey.
to
I But I have a question. I know that we touched upon it before we again started the podcast, but where do but I really want to give the listener a place to start. And I also want to say to the listeners that this is you coming on here again. We need to talk more about different, not only the vagina, but also other things that herbs can help us with. You know that I'm into this whole menstrual cycle awareness stuff, and I think there's so much we can do there. When I also wrote to you in the email about that, like if we have pain or in menopause or pregnancy. I think we had a whole lesson on that in your school. But my question is with the yeast infection, and I know there's not you can't put the same remedy on another person what you did, but where can one start? Like where do we? Because if you tried everything, like you went to the doctor and you just maybe you changed your diet a bit, but you also want to eat bread sometimes. What the fuck? With butter on, a little bit of butter on it.
Yeah. And jelly. I'm putting jelly on mine.
You
Like
should. You should, but you should taste my jelly. I had those. Oh no, now I don't remember the words. The name of the berry we had this summer. Um. Anyways, doesn't matter. What I
is
made
it like
jam
goose?
from it was good. So
Nice.
you should taste it when you
Oh, so
come in.
yeah,
Sorry.
start with your jelly. That's where you start.
That's good. Start with your jelly, but yeah, honestly, what should they do? Those pure with the yeast beast.
Yeah, I
Poor.
mean, it's a team effort, right? Like I think if you are in a place where you know a good acupuncturist and you can go get some acupuncture, that's a great thing to do. Also, I think doing therapy is awesome because that allows you the space to really look at like sexual trauma that could have
Mm,
happened in your past. And that actually is something that's tied into chronic yeast infections a lot. If people have had sexual trauma in their life, maybe the sexual relationship that that person is currently in, and this is something I also see in the clinic a lot, is that oh, this is such an important aspect of candida. I'm so glad I remembered to talk about this. Okay. I think that part of the disease of candida, because here's something that happens, and I've seen this so many times. A person comes in and they're like, I'm having painful sex. I think I'm having a yeast infection. But when I
mm,
go to the gynecologist and they do the swab test, there's no yeast that's showing up. But it feels the same way it feels when I've had a yeast infection in the past, like a confirmed infection. And so I say to that person, okay, how do you feel about sex in general? Like, how do you feel in terms of like vocalizing the kind of sex you want, what your expectations are, what you feel comfortable doing, what you don't feel comfortable doing? And typically, people will say, yeah, there are times like I don't feel free to just say, I don't want to have sex today.
yeah.
So I just go along with it because they're my boyfriend and I feel like I should give them that or whatever, you know. Or they'll say, yeah, I used to really like sex with this person, but now I don't really because there's this other thing that we're not talking about. And now I
Mm,
just, the sex is weird or whatever. Or they're like, yeah, like this person, has like kind of a weird power thing with me, like they're really jealous or what, there's always something going on with the sexual relationship that I think the the yoni is basically saying not only like you need to strengthen your immune system, but saying like you need to strengthen your ability to set boundaries because that's what the immune
ooh,
system is, right? It's like it's our boundary, it's our layer of boundary. It's the thing that says, oh, you can come in, but you can't come in, right? We're going to integrate you to being part of who we are as the self, or we're not.
mm.
The immune system is the deciding factor. So like if you're having sex and you don't really want to be having sex, or you're having a kind of sex that you don't want to be having, the yoni is going to say something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you're
She,
bringing this up. She is.
she is wise.
She is, and she definitely she is, and I'm so happy you're bringing this up because I'm actually also sometimes trying to tell people this that maybe that's the factor, and because I have a also amazing woman in she's alternative doctor in Germany, and you can actually study, so you can become a normal doctor, but then you can take the alternative road in Germany. It's quite, they have done it for years and years, and I always go to her to see what's up with me. And I had a yeast, yeah, see, I had yeast infections in my life. I had one there too. And she was asking me the question, how is your sex life with Jens? And I was like, well, okay, there's nothing there. Like it's a slow season right now, but nothing, not, I don't, it's not because I don't like to have sex with Jens or anything like that. And then she explained afterwards why she asked, and she exactly said the same thing as you did. Um, because it's actually for many of the women who are coming with yeast infection to her, it's because the woman or the yoni doesn't want to. There's something off, like in the relationship, but something they don't talk about. And so, oh my God, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for remembering saying that. So
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have?
So, sometimes with clients, I have to, I have to gauge it, but some people, they come into the consult and they're just like, here's everything, and then there's some people who you can tell are, it's going to take some time,
Mm,
right? Or maybe they're not even fully aware. So, depending on the person, sometimes I might say something like, how do you feel about saying no? Just in general, not with sex, just how are you with saying no in your life to whatever?
mm.
And oftentimes, the people with the chronic candida will say, yeah, I got to work on that. I'm not very good at saying no. And I think that's a chronic problem, like, of, I'm not going to generalize and say like all women, because I don't
Mm.
like those kinds of generalizations, but I think my type of being a woman, like however I was raised to be a woman, I definitely was raised to be like a people pleaser, you
Yeah.
know? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. I'm just like so sensitive to people's like emotions, and that in itself is kind of like a superpower, but the way that it can start to like fester and make you sick is if you aren't putting so much energy into trusting your feelings about yourself, and you're putting the sensory input that you're getting from another person, it is like more important. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So it's, and especially when you're in such like an intimate thing, like sex is like the most intimate, right? Like I think it's hard. I think it's hard for us as people pleasers in the world to just say,
So
nope.
true, especially in the bed. And I think so also we are raised to just, be ready all the time. And we are just not, like, we have them, again, back to the menstrual cycle. We have our ebbs and flows there. And sometimes actually we are not made for having sex. And then we just say yes anyway, because yeah, because he's horny or whatever. He grew up with an idea that he has to have his sex every day, and it's just not healthy, and also not for the pH in the vagina itself to have like sex every day. And she needs to rest too, right?
I mean, it's a vicious cycle, because if
Yeah.
the partner has the yeast also, but I think it wears, I think really what it is, and I mean, I've been in plenty of relationships where I wanted to have more sex than my partner. So I also think that it can be a little bit of a trope too. Like the man is always horny and the woman is not. And, you know, that has not always been the case for me. I'll just say that. But it's, there is a difference though between like being horny and also like being ready to like open up fully for another person and trust them. Like you can want to fuck someone. Can I say that here?
Yeah, you can say that.
That word. Okay.
You can say everything.
Yeah, you can want to fuck someone's brains out and then at the same time, like also not actually trust them. I mean, I think you can hold like both
I
of
had
those.
some of the best sex with some of that I couldn't trust, you know? He was such an asshole and it was so sexy.
Mhm.
That was the best sex ever, you know? So yeah, I know what you mean.
But the yoni will shut that shit down.
Yeah.
The yoni will be like, no, don't,
Not
no.
today.
Yeah. So listen, you have to listen to your intuition, your
Yeah.
solar plexus. You also have to listen to the yoni and hear her talking. And so yeah, so step one is practice saying no, whatever that means. Like it can be like saying no to your parents who want you to come over to dinner and you don't feel like doing that because you want to lay in bed and read a book. Like
Mm,
it can be whatever. Step two is heal your gut.
yeah.
So, if you're eating things that are making you have like diarrhea all the time, that's a sign that maybe you're lactose intolerant or gluten's not your friend or whatever. So there's a lot of herbs that people can take to heal their gut. Probiotics are great. So step two would be like heal your gut and um, take some herbs to heal your gut. I have chamomile sitting here next to me. That's a great herb for healing your gut.
I just ordered some.
Marshmallow, marshmallow root. That's another one.
Yeah.
And step three would be take herbs and do all the other things that help to just strengthen your immunity. So sleeping, going to bed by 11, being in a horizontal position by 11 p.m., getting 8 hours of sleep every night, um, staying hydrated, like eating colorful foods,
Mm.
walking every day, like getting some movement, and then things like astragalus. I mean, I think if I was going to just really point to one herb that I think is such a great herb, specifically for candida, it would be astragalus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just as a tea?
Yeah, as a decoction with
Okay.
some, warming. So you put the water and the root, the cut up root in a pot and you bring it to a boil and then you let it go down to a simmer and then you simmer it for a little bit. I used to make this thing that I loved so much because after a while I learned that when the yeast infections stopped being like every month, they started just being once a year and it was always at the same time of the year. So I would do this preventatively and it really helped. And it was like half apple cider, or I guess you could use apple juice if you don't have apple cider. Apple cider is just like an unpasteurized apple juice. So it has like more of that good probiotic stuff in it.
Mm.
So you do half apple cider, half water, and then you do your decoction with the astragalus. You could throw some like elderberries in there or some cinnamon or some ginger or some eleutherococcus, which is Siberian ginseng, which is another like immune stimulating herb, or ashwagandha, which is an amazing herb, which is also a root. And you just decoct it and then you drink that tea throughout the day. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Cardamom is a good one.
Yeah.
Bitter orange peel. All these like aromatic digestive herbs were like also very important for me.
Thank you for sharing that. Hopefully we
Yeah.
can help some women on the road to non yeast infection and just understanding. That was some great tips actually. I have
Oh,
not
and
yeah, sorry.
one more thing I have to say. This is like, I think this is so basic, but maybe somebody hasn't heard it. So I have to say it. You gotta let your lady air out. So
Yeah.
cotton underwear and something that I've been noticing that helps too is like sleeping sometimes without any underwear, just
Yeah.
letting her air
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. I do that often as well. I feel like that is it's so nice to just sleep without anything because it's always like packed in, it's always something on it, some undies, pants. It's no when is it free flowing? I think it's always so tight. I think in the older days they had like more the clothes were more loose, but now it's all like it's sticking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get rid of the synthetic underwear and the pantyhose and the yoga pants, and it's all, I mean, I like a good pair of yoga pants just like the next girl, but it's you gotta let her air out.
Yeah. That's why I enjoy going to the naked beaches here in the summertime in Denmark. Then she can get some sunshine as well. It's really nice. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
haven't tried that.
You should. A little bit of sun beaming into on the yoni. It's quite nice. And then you go into the salt water afterwards, and it's just a different story. She's a very happy yoni, I tell you.
It's a
So
delicate it's a
mm,
delicate flower.
she is,
And
and she's such a queen as well, right? She always knows. She's quite wise, and she tells you what's up, what she wants, and I think we should definitely start listening more to her.
mm, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was talking to my mom about the yeast infections, she told me, "Oh yeah, I had those, but then as soon as I had a baby, I never got another one."
Mm,
So I don't know the science behind that, but maybe there's some kind of like floral change that occurs like during pregnancy or during the birth or something. But also I really, yeah, I feel like I've been extra resistant since having kids to like having them because I eat bread like every morning. It's like bread and coffee. It's really not good actually, but that's like, and I always think I always like think back to my 20s and I'm just like, oh my God, like or my third, yeah, just there was a time where I couldn't even think about doing that, or my
wow.
vagina was like on fire.
Oh, it must have been so itchy. It must have been so, and such a young age as well, where you really, exploring yourself and your sex life, and then you just have this fire vagina. Oh,
Terrible.
terrible. I'm so glad that you came on and told us a little bit about how we can fix that so we can have more women having a
I love
fresh.
that I put one of your chickens in the
Oh,
window
she's.
behind.
You know what? They're quite cheeky because they know they see really well. They can see really well, and now they know I'm in here. I'm like, oh, does she have anything? What is she doing there? Do you? Yeah, it's so funny that they showed up.
Are they begging? Is that what they're doing? They're begging outside your window.
They're so cute. So I have a few more questions for you, actually. So um, what would you change about the way people, women, humans are looking at plant medicine? Because I know that it hasn't got a really good reputation like the last thousands of years. So what would you how can because I know also a lot of people are afraid of it, what to do, what not to do. Like how do we regain a beautiful relationship with herbs?
Mm, that's a good question. Um, It's a good question because I'm at a time in my life, Niki, where I am pretty much only surrounded by people who also are just totally crazy about plants. So I start to forget that there are people still in the world who aren't riding this train that we're riding.
Yeah.
Um, I just think I think it's if everyone actually just took a moment to think just a little bit about the span of human history. Like I was doing some research the other day about that because I also realized like I have a lot of ignorance when it comes to just like human history.
Mm.
I was getting ready to give a presentation on herbal energetics, and I was like, wait a minute. Okay, I am reading that Ayurveda is 5,000 years old,
Mm-hmm.
but or you read something where you're like, the Vedas were written in 1,500 BC. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, what does that mean? I don't even understand BC. So I had to do all this like learning about even how time was being measured to understand these dates that I was reading about Ayurvedic medicine.
Yeah.
And in that research, I kind of got into a wormhole and I realized, okay, so we've basically like penicillin was the first pharmaceutical, which everyone knows comes from mold, actually. So the first pharmaceutical does come from fungus. And that was like 140 years ago at the
Mm.
most, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, So then it's like, okay, well, then there's like a systematized form of medicine, Ayurveda, that has been systematized for at least 2,500 years. And then you have like people doing an oral version of that. So orally, like saving that knowledge throughout generations for
Yeah.
like 1,500 years or 2,500 years. And then you start to read about, okay, but when were like the first like cities and civilizations, and when were people doing agriculture? So people have been doing agriculture for, I'm forgetting it now, but it's like somewhere between like 140,000 years people have been doing agriculture.
Mm.
And so if you're a practicing herbalist, then it would only make sense to you to then think, well, if people are like growing food, they're definitely growing herbs. So you can safely say that there's been herb gardens and people have been growing medicine
Yeah.
for 100,000 years.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 million years of just humans being hunting and gathering. So really, I mean, if you're talking about like the history of plant medicine, it's as old as humans. Like the
Yeah.
moment you have people, you have herbalism, because all herbalism is the coming together of people and plants for the sake of better living and health and
Mm.
survival. So it's like, how can anyone like turn their nose like up at herbalism? Like, herbal, that's like being like humanity. I don't have time for that, you know? Like, what? It's kind of ridiculous.
It is.
So I do understand that, we have a tendency as humans to just focus on like the here, whatever, thing is like popular right now and what we're living in. But if we just take a moment and really like consider, you know, that it's not a fad thing, like herbalism didn't like come around with some hippies in the 70s. It's not gonna like not be around, when I'm 70 years old. Like
No.
this is not it's not a fad, like this is just how people have healed themselves since people existed, which has been 2 million years.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere,
And I also like the one we had a question in the one of the assignments you did in the school, and it was what part is bigger, like the herbal medicine or the pharmaceutical medicine in the world? I don't know if the question was like that, but it was definitely what which one do we use the most? Is this herbals or pharmaceutical? I think it was something like that. And my answer was wrong because I thought the most people in the world were using pharmaceuticals, and then it was surprising that most people actually use herbal medicine and things from nature. And I was like, that I just remember that so clearly. I was like, really? But that is so true. It's such a big part of the world doesn't actually have access to modern day medicine, or what you will call it.
Yeah. You know, I'm also not against pharmaceuticals or modern day medicine or any of that. I think, you know, it's amazing that like I don't have to have like a worry as a parent that my kid is going to die of diphtheria, you know, or malaria. Like I live in a place and we have a healthcare system and we have things in place within that system to prevent those things from happening on a large scale. And I feel very, very, very grateful for that. You know, like one of my biggest fears is actually like being in a car accident. Like I don't know why that is, but I'm always kind of on edge when I'm in a car. I'm just like, ugh. And I'm so thankful that, you know, if some kind of crazy thing happened, like you could go to a hospital, you know, you could have a helicopter like come in and lift you to a hospital, and surgeons could like cut you open. And that's amazing. You
Yeah.
know, that's so amazing. The other misconception, actually, I'll say this, I learned this the other day, is that surgery is part of Ayurveda. That blew my mind. I was like, what? Yeah, like there was a whole text that is at least 1,000 years old that was, or 3,000 years old even, that was like, this is how you do surgery.
Oh,
Like this,
wow.
yeah, this is how you perform a cesarean.
Oh,
So
shit.
like even this idea that we have that, okay, modern medicine started in like the 1800s or something, and like we
Mm.
didn't have surgery before that, or you know, we didn't have surgery before morphine or anesthesia, or no, like we've always had herbal anesthetics. Surgery's been happening. Like these things have been happening for a long time in a lot of places all over the world, you know. So we just, I think even I, until like a couple of days ago, was really ignorant about these kinds of things. But if you just stop to read like a little bit of history, it really shifts your perspective.
That is so interesting. Yeah, I think it's about keeping an open mind and that we not know everything. We can always learn. And I think
Yeah.
also they still learn a lot about humanity and figuring out where we're from and how it all shifted, how we wandered from one place to the other. And there's always coming news out how we did it. And so yeah, open
I think
having an
really
open.
the only thing we know for sure, Nikki, is that people have been using plants forever.
Yeah.
That's the only thing
So
we know for.
it's safe to use. And yeah, and I will also say, like, yeah, go to your page and see what's up and start like small, like, with your dandelion or with stuff that is, that it's 100% safe, or nettles. Or that is something where I started, like, this is, you know good stuff you can start on without any, problems. I like the dandelion stuff. I do. It helped me to get off coffee. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
awesome. Are you
root.
still you
The
still
root.
doing that?
No, I stopped after I'm now over the whole detox phase because I was peeing a lot with drinking the dandelion root. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm over the coffee and now I want to be over the running to the toilet all the time. So yeah, but it was good. It helped me
And
a lot.
everybody has kind of different reactions to herbs too. That's why I think it's good for people who are interested in herbalism and trying herbs to work, you know, take a class or work with a clinical herbalist, because it's not one size fits all. You know, it's
No.
not like pharmaceuticals. I mean, the astragalus really helped me And I do think that typically people who are having a chronic yeast infection probably do need to strengthen their immune system. And the astragalus does that. At the same time, like if you read about astragalus as an energetic plant, it's specifically for clearing dampness.
Mm.
Um, and my acupuncturist was always saying, "You have a damp spleen. You have a damp spleen." And I like never understood that. But then when I was studying more about astragalus, I realized, oh yeah, this herb is like really appropriate for me. So I think that's when the magic happens with herbalism is when you can find an herb that sort of fits from all the different perspectives, like whether you're looking at a person from a TCM perspective or an Ayurvedic perspective or a Western herbal perspective or a biomedical perspective, or even just like a soul, like the kind of more esoteric, like what is your soul story? What is the what are your dreams and what is your soul calling? And it's kind of like you have to take it all into account when you're trying to figure out what is the right herb for a person, and it all lines up. Like I saw a client the other day and I was like, yeah, I could give her this thing, that's like a cardiovascular tonic. And then I was taking a walk and the borage was just like calling out to me.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, oh, I'm really curious about borage. I feel like I read about borage, but it's just like hasn't stuck inside me. So I came home from my walk and I'm reading about it. And it's like every single thing on the list of borage is this client.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
yeah, I was just like, oh my God, it's so crazy. So those kinds of things happen in herbalism, and it's really quite magical. It's such a joyful practice. I feel so lucky I get to do it.
Yeah. No, it's true. I don't know actually what if it was you saying it or heard it from somebody else, but the herb that we need is like growing like a lot around you, or you will see it much oftener. And it's funny to see here in Denmark where we have a lot of like the nettles and stuff, and and a lot of people have like differences, not differences, deficiencies in this, and actually need this plant. Or if you suddenly also you see my neighbor has oh no, I don't know how to say the word. Arthritis. Arthritis.
Arthritis?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, but I have read up on that comfrey is a really good if you make it into a cream, and it can help a lot for that. And it's all
Mm.
over the place here. Um so I just, yeah, what I want to say with that, because I'm definitely not an expert yet, but it's just there's a lot of this, the plant that that you need is around you. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have
it's
another.
true.
Oh,
I
yeah.
oh, I was just gonna let me just give a shout out to Violet because that's
Yeah.
this is a this is a plant that I have a little bit of it here. This is one of the dried
Mm.
flowers of
Yeah.
violet. This is a plant I never really studied when I was in herb school, never really had a relationship with when I was a clinical herbalist in Baltimore. And it was just this last year when we were in the Collective Wonder class that you were a part of that another participant shared a really deep story about violet. And then I was thinking, oh, I gotta build like a deeper relationship with violet. Maybe this is, an herb I should get to know more. And so there's a lot of it growing just down the road. And I picked it and I made a medicine with it. And I took that medicine. And the first night I took the tincture,
Mm.
I had the most healing dream. It was like some really old wound in me was like completely healed by this dream that I had. And I woke up and it was so intense that I was just like, what happened right before I went to bed? And then I remembered that I had taken the violet tincture. I was like, and it just felt
Oh,
true to me. I was like, it had to be the violet. Like the violet helped me have this healing dream. And then this year, now this is violet time again.
yeah.
So a year later, it's like everywhere outside my house.
Oh,
It's
wow.
like in all these places that I've never seen it pop up.
It's there for you. Time to dream. Time to
Yeah,
heal and dream.
their plants are so amazing.
They
They
are.
can they can do so many different things like on so many different levels. And I'm a super skeptical person. Like I would not consider myself a woo-woo person at all. I'm very, very skeptical of things. And I think the herbs are really like shifting that in me a little bit. They're making they're working
They
their
working the
way.
magic, like getting you back to your witchiness, like the whole. No, I feel that strongly with the herbs and the medicines and it's just like I believe in the whole woohoo thing. I do for sure. I think they magical, and I think everything that can happen if yeah, if you do the take the different stuff. And I don't know, I think there's a lot of magic out there. I'm definitely believe in that. I have another question for you.
Okay.
Tell me something that is true for you that almost nobody else agrees with you on.
Um, that's a hard question. I had a
Mm-hmm.
feeling this question was coming up, and I was thinking about it beforehand, and I couldn't really think of anything. Oh, I guess the other thing maybe that's like a little bit controversial that I feel a lot more comfortable talking about is that I'm really into vasectomies, and I will
Oh yeah,
take, do you know
yeah.
what
Yeah, I was just
when
thinking, yeah, now I know what it is. Yeah.
when men get the little surgery where it cuts the vas deferens, it scars the vas deferens so that the sperm can't actually like come into the semen.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of vasectomies. And I understand that they're not for everyone. Obviously, if you're like a person and you want to make babies at some point in your life and you have a penis, you probably don't want to get a vasectomy. But I kind of feel like we should have some kind of law that's like, okay, like if you've had your kids and that's it, or if you're like a man who, is like not wanting to have kids, or any, if you're anyone
Mm,
with a penis, for sure, 100% sure you don't want to procreate, snip it. Like,
yeah.
let's go. Like, let's get that subsidized. Let's get it like, let's pay people to do that.
Yeah. I agree on that. And also take the stigma out that, you're not a real man anymore and all this stuff. I think instead of women going through all the, with the pill or whatever, we have to stick up there to not get pregnant after we had our kids or if we don't want kids. I think if a man had to do this, like change all the hormones and just be freaking all over the place because we have to do this, a man would
Yeah.
never do that. And then you have like, a 5 minute snippety snoop and it's done and you still can get a
Nothing.
hard on. you know,
And you still can come. I mean, there's still
that's still
ejaculate.
calm. That's still,
Right.
yeah, it's the
Still
whole
see that you're still like spreading something into the world. It's
pull it
like,
out to the world.
yeah, you can still have that fun of like coming on someone's face if that's what you like.
Yeah,
It's none of that
exactly.
changes for you. It's like literally like the most like first of all, it is besides abstinence, it is the safest contraception out there. Like
Yeah,
it's like 99.9% effective form of contraception,
yeah,
right? Here you have like people taking hormonal contraceptions that are so disastrous. I actually think that was a huge reason why I started getting chronic yeast infections, was because I had
Mm.
been on contraception since I was like 16.
Mm.
So led, because it was like 4 years of hormonal contraception before I had my first yeast infection. But I was taking hormonal contraception all throughout while I was having it, and I never felt like I could fully stop it. And then I think at one point I did stop it, but then I the condoms were really irritating, and the
Yeah.
spermicide was
Yeah.
irritating to the whole vaginal flora. So it's like that then becomes like a whole nother thing that messes up the love making and the freedom and everything, and it really does affect the vaginal milieu. So
Yeah.
oh my God, if you're a person who's having issues with your yoni, and your partner and you are sure that you don't want kids or you don't want any more kids, and you're trying to like figure out like what kind of contraception should we have as a couple, vasectomy, like it's a no-brainer. Like
It's
just
no,
do, like I'm gonna get the bullhorn out and just vasectomy.
it is no brainer. And I tell you a story. I met a man in Bali who had a vasectomy. Do I say it right? I don't know if I say it right. Anyways, he
Vasectomy.
vasectomy. So he had way before he had a wife. They had two children, and that was it. They didn't want to have more children, and he got the snippety snoop. And then they got divorced, not because of that, but a few years later they got divorced, and he found himself a younger little, schmiggy smacky woman, and she wanted children. So he just not undid the knot, so he
They
just
untied the knot.
he untied a knot and got two more beautiful girls, and he tied the knot again. And that was it. And well, that was no less of a man of him. He was just what he did, and none of his women ever had to do anything, take any pills or whatever to not get any children, and it was painless. And I love that he talked so openly about it. It was just a no-brainer for him. And he was a real man's man, so just want to say it here.
If guys could if people with penises could understand that it actually makes you so much sexier. Like,
Yeah.
I swear, I'm having the best sex of my whole life right now at 42, because we're so free,
Yeah.
like you don't have to worry about getting pregnant. You're just like, yes, like let's just do, like just so free. And there's something that happens when
Mm.
a partner says, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take responsibility for this. Like
Yeah.
this is not all on your shoulders. What is hotter than that? Like that is the sexiest thing ever. If a man is like, I got you.
I got you. I
You're
snip it
not
for
gonna have,
you.
yeah, like I'm gonna cut that shit for you. Like, and for you too. Like he doesn't have to worry about wearing condoms forever. Like
Exactly.
never
No,
ever.
I don't understand why they don't do it, especially when you're freaking done with the children production, It's just, and it doesn't cost, it's just in Denmark, I don't think it costs any money. And so you're done with it. You save all this money on all the other shit you have to put on or put in and take or whatever. It's just, I don't understand it. And here in Denmark, it's a 5 minutes procedure or something. It's like in and out. Whoopty swoopty.
Yeah. Well, for my husband, it was a little bit more intense. They did in Portugal, they did like fully put him under. They didn't have to. They
Mm.
told him like in the meeting that he had with the doctor before the actual day, he was like, well, we might put you under, we might not. We'll decide on the day. And he was like, he was in bed with like ice for a couple of days. It was tender, like we had to wait a certain amount of time before You have to go in, you have to like test the semen to make sure there's no sperm coming out like 6 weeks later. It is a process. It's not like it's just like, okay, you're done, like, and I appreciate the fact that he went through that process really a lot. But if you compare that to growing and pushing out 2 children and then breastfeeding those 2 children each for 2 years, like, no comparison. Like,
when you
sorry.
were just saying that, I was just thinking that like that can be like what you have gone through, to deliver 2 beautiful children. It's like, and then you have like a 6 week period where you're a little bit wonky because you got a snippy snip. It's like, come on,
I
guys.
mean,
Yeah.
do the mother of your children a solid, like just do her a favor. Be like, okay, you grew a human being. Like, I get to have offspring because that human being grew in your body. Your body created a whole nother organ the size of a liver that's called a placenta. Like, you pushed out a human being and a placenta and then lost a bunch of blood, and then you fed the baby like with your body, and you've lost income because of this work that you had to do. Like, do your fucking lady a solid, get
Yeah.
a vasectomy. Like, I'm so passionate about this.
I can hear that, and I love that. I love that you're saying that because I so much feel the same way. It's like because almost every couple here, when they finish having their children, they still taking something because their husband are too. It's all about the manliness. It's all about the manliness. Yeah, yeah. Well said.
I'm really, let's, yeah, let's just say a little prayer right now. May we as a society please transform this ignorance that we have around vasectomies and manlyhood, and can we see the true nature of it being the most manly, fucking hottest ever thing
Sexiest.
ever. Just, it's so hot. It's just, please
And you
do it.
and you're so right about the sex as well. It must just be so freeing, you can do it whenever, wherever. It's just like it.
You don't have to think about another thing. You don't have to think about, I'm going to take a pill. I'm going to put my diaphragm in. Wait a minute. Am I ovulating? Am I not ovulating? Like, wait, do we have a condom? Like,
Yeah,
I spent my entire life, like from the time I started menstruating at 15 until my husband got his vasectomy when I was like, I don't know, 39 or 38 or something like that.
mm,
That's a long time. That's over 20 years of having every single sexual encounter include that other thing
yeah,
that's there.
yeah.
Like, even when you're having sex and you're trying to get pregnant, you're thinking, oh, we got to get pregnant now because I'm ovulating. Oh my
Oh,
God, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to just not think about anything except for the sex itself.
enjoying each other's bodies and pleasure, and I can only imagine. Oh, that's beautiful. I think that is such a great message. I think that is a really great message.
Has nothing to do with herbal medicine, but it's like my maybe it's going to be like my next life is trying to convince people to have vasectomies.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that is a great comment of the day. So we almost at the end, and I have many questions, but I think you answered a lot of them. But if there's a message from probably, if you had a billboard or a message, 3 truths you would give to the world, or to your younger self, like some things you would leave behind to the world, that is 3 truths, and you can put it up on a billboard so everybody can see that, what would those 3 truths be? Get a vasectomy.
Besides get a vasectomy. It's not always up to you is one mantra that has saved me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Another one would be I don't know how to phrase this like very poetically, but the connection that we all have with Mother Earth is something that no one can ever take away from us.
Yeah.
And get a vasectomy.
You should have seen your face. No, I love it. It's the best 3 truths I ever heard.
No, I guess I just want people to feel empowered to start their own healing work, whatever that means. And I think, a huge part of that work like falls on us, those who have uteruses and yonis and whatever, for whatever reason, like our bodies just feel more complicated and there's more stuff going on. So I hope we can keep doing it. We've been doing it for a while, but I hope we can keep doing it, keep supporting yonis.
More power to the
Hell?
yonis. Healing to the
Yeah.
yonis, more power to the yonis. I really like that. I think also that is a part of my work as well. Like, how do we uncover the yoni? How do we learn about the yoni again and everything that goes with it? Because it also always been so hidden. And that's why I wanted you also come on the podcast to open up about the whole yeast thing. But I know that you have so many more goodies in your little pouch bag. A little druid bag, or what you call it, and I definitely want you on more on the podcast again and talking about other stuff and other herbs and so is there anything, that question I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? Is there anything we left on the table? Because I know that we could go on forever, but is there anything, last words beside the vasectomy?
I would love to do another podcast with you and maybe another another mother. Maybe you could have 2 people on at the same time and have a conversation about motherhood, because that's something that is also kind of hidden. I do talk about it a little bit in my teaching. But that's been such a that's a whole nother journey. And that's another area where I felt there was a lot of disempowerment that I had to overcome. So I think it would be really interesting to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. And yeah, you can think about maybe a person you would love to have on here as well, and we could do a threesome. Sounded so weird.
But I love your podcast, Niki. I like the minute I saw that you were doing a podcast, I was kind of surprised because you were always so quiet in the group. And I was like, whoa, this is like a whole nother side of Niki. She's doing this Uncomfortably Honest podcast. I was so excited for you. And then I was very excited to listen to the first episode that you had with that beautiful friend of yours who's the singer.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I was so transformed by that podcast. And then you had another amazing guest where she talked about menopause, and it was great. And I was just thinking, oh, I hope I get to be on this. So I'm excited to hear more episodes and meet more of the amazing people in your life. And yeah, we didn't even talk about like Portugal and that whole connection that we have, how you came
Yeah.
here also as someone not from Portugal. And
Oh yeah, the whole why I even showed up on your on the school because of Selma and everything. You have to join. Okay.
see, I thought it was because of Kate and Lucky.
No,
No.
Kate was there because of me.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a herb book like with 500 different herbs, like a big one from Jens for Christmas. But because we were in Portugal at this time, we sent it everything to Selma's Cafe in Sentato. And so he unpacked it down there, and Selma was, oh, I didn't know Niki was into herbs. And she, yeah. And then she told me about you, and boom, see, 1 year later we are on a podcast together. Life is good.
Oh, it really is. Yeah. I mean, I loved all your stories with your other guests about just the decision that we're so lucky to have been able to make, where we just say, fuck it, I'm going to go do something else. I don't know what it's going to be like, and it's scary, and there's a lot of unknown, but I'm going to go do it. And yeah, that's really resonated with me when I've been listening. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, you have done a lot of that stuff as well. Oh man, we have to do another podcast. We have to. And the last thing actually I want to ask is, where can people find out about you? Where can they learn from you? Can they actually get one-on-one coaching if they like, I need to conquer the yeast beast? Because I know that it is much, much more easier when you are one-on-one with you, because you look not only at one thing, you look at the whole person. And so let the listener know where they can find you.
Yeah. So my clinical practice is taking a bit of a back seat right now because I started Collective Wonder Herb School last year.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are in our second year of Collective Wonder. Our online program just started in January. So that's a program that's going to run through the whole year. So if you're a listener and you're interested in studying herbalism with me or with Collective Wonder, you can find out about that at collectivewonderherbschool.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next program will start at the beginning of 2024. But we're also, if you're listening and you're from Portugal, I'm also doing a couple of events this year that are more like short, intensive events. So I'm doing a retreat at
I was
Kate's.
just, yeah.
Yeah, doing a retreat at Kate's with a lovely, lovely person named Stephanie, who does a lot of women's circles like you do. And she also helped me a lot with the school when we were starting the school. She was like my right hand woman. Um, and Stephanie also has studied herbalism with me. So her and I and Kate are going to do a retreat at Kate's place in April.
Ooh.
And yeah, there's a link to that on my Instagram. So if you go to Collective Wonder Herb School on Instagram, then you go to the link tree, you can see all the things that I'm doing. I'm also doing another retreat here in Portugal with a wonderful woman named Teresa, who does distillation of essences, like flower essences, and she does these amazing perfumes, like all with natural things. And she goes to Peru and takes people on journeys in Peru. So her and I are teaming up, and we're going to do an earth medicine retreat. And that's going to be March 24th through 26th.
Wow.
So lots of really exciting stuff happening this year. Yeah.
I'm so excited for that. Oh, I wish I could be there when you go to Kate's. That would be, that's such a lovely place at
Yeah.
Kate's. Yeah. And the goat.
And you get to meet Lucky the goat.
That's the only reason I want to go.
That's like worth the price of admission right there.
Exactly, exactly. No, it's just the experience. You go for a walk and you have three dogs and a goat. It's just something else. It's just
Lucky.
something else.
I'm gonna start a Lucky fan club.
I think should do that. She just have an Instagram with that. But
Just
anyways, I
love.
will also link all your information in the comments below. So wow, Olivia, this was so interesting. I'm so happy you were on here today. I'm so inspired, your story, everything. I'm just amazed by you. And it was so lovely to see like a different side of you. I don't know. That was just lovely to getting to know you in a different setting as well. So I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Oh my goodness. I really hope that all this sharing and all this talking about myself really does help other people. I hope that someone listening is helped by it. Maybe somebody who's having some yeast beast issues themselves and they're going to go out and get some astragalus and make some astragalus cinnamon tea, and their yoni is going to say, thank you.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much, honey.
All right. Well, if somebody does want to consult, you can always send me an email and or just get in touch with me. You can send me a DM on Instagram or whatever. I'm
Okay.
out there.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Niki. Good luck with the podcast. I love it. I'm going to listen to every episode, maybe even more than once.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I had my biggest fan on today then. Thank you, Olivia. Bye.
All right. Bye.